What if the hardest villain Spider-Man ever had to fight wasn't a supervillain at all, but himself? The Spider-Man Brand New Day official trailer just dropped, and Spider-Man touches the skyline of New York, shutting down the Punisher mouth, meeting Bruce Banner, and shooting webs straight from his bare hands. In this video, we break down every hidden detail and Easter egg. The trailer opens with Peter in his Spider-Man suit, looking at a social media post from his old friend Ned. Ned and MJ are thriving at MIT. And honestly, that hits hard for Peter for two separate reasons. First, getting into a school like MIT was Peter's dream, his Aunt May's dream for him too. Second, Peter misses his friends deeply. These are the same people he made the conscious decision not to remind about his identity at the end of No Way Home, because he never wanted them caught in danger because of him. So Peter stares at those posts, pulls on his mask, and leaps off a beam so high up that just watching it gives you vertigo. And honestly, that jump is giving me serious Amazing Spider-Man 2 opening scene energy. If the actual film delivers swinging sequences at that level, we are in for something truly special. There's also a shot from inside the mask, which felt a little off to me because realistically there wouldn't be that much space between Peter's face and the mask. But okay, moving on. Playing underneath all of this, we can hear Peter's voice reading from a piece of paper. And if you look at the next shot, that is literally the same letter Peter was carrying at the end of No Way Home. The one he never got to give to MJ and Ned. We're now hearing every word he wrote, everything he wanted them to know. Across these shots, we see Peter sitting alone with a coffee, grabbing snacks on his phone, and then Ned shows up at the same spot. It's not the same place where we saw MJ working in No Way Home, but it's clear Peter is finding little ways to be near his old friends without them knowing why. We also see Peter cleaning his Spider-Man suit alone in his apartment. He's solo, but at least he's keeping things organized. Then we see MJ and Ned watching TV, and there's a shot of Spider-Man being given the keys to the city. In the US, that's a genuine honor, and city leadership formally recognizing someone for their service to the community, and our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man absolutely deserves that. But here's what's quietly devastating about that scene. Peter's friends have no awareness of Peter Parker, but their eyes are completely locked onto Spider-Man. And if you look carefully later in the trailer, when Peter shows up at MJ and Ned's place with flowers as a housewarming gift, the wall behind him is covered in Spider-Man newspaper clippings. The armored vehicle. Now we're into part 2, and when Spider-Man drops from a serious height. The more high-altitude jump sequences this trailer shows us, the more I'm already imagining this thing in IMAX 3D, because every single one of those shots looks incredible. Here we can see a heavily armored vehicle straight up opening fire on Spider-Man and causing absolute chaos across the city. This is the same vehicle and swinging action that showed up in the very first day of set footage from Brand New Day. And the trailer keeps coming back to this sequence. It's clearly a major centerpiece of the film. Right in the middle of all this, the Punisher rolls in. And his introduction, he drives his van directly into Spider-Man. Look, something similar happened in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and we know a full-speed train couldn't stop Spider-Man, so what's a van going to do? But what I genuinely love here is the dynamic between these two. Spider-Man knows this guy on a first-name basis. He calls him Frank without even thinking twice. That tells you everything. These two have crossed paths enough times that there's a real established relationship here. Frank Castle, the Punisher, knows exactly how much punishment Spider-Man can take. That's why he uses the van instead of anything more lethal. He's not trying to kill him, he's trying to move him. In my opinion, this is one of the coolest moments in the whole trailer. This is what it looks like when a shared universe is actually being used properly. Spider-Man knows there's a Frank Castle out there doing what he does in New York, and Frank respects the wall crawler enough to work around him rather than through him. Frank came to stop that armored vehicle himself, but Spider-Man shuts him down, because he's going to handle it without Frank making everything more complicated than it already is. The next shot shows Peter at what looks like a housewarming party, and later in the trailer, Peter mentions he lives right across the street. So there's a strong chance this is MJ or Ned's place, which means Peter is living directly across from his best friends who don't remember him. That is a specific kind of emotional pain. We also see MJ putting the flowers Peter brought into a vase in the kitchen, and then immediately after, we meet MJ's new boyfriend. Peter's heart is definitely breaking quietly in the background of that scene. Now we get into the part of the trailer that genuinely concerned me most, in the best way. Peter passes out, same clothes he had on at the housewarming, and we see him in those same clothes visiting Aunt May's grave later. So this is all happening in the same stretch of time. The official movie synopsis describes it like this: the pressure on Spider-Man becomes so overwhelming that he's pushed toward a physical evolution, one that threatens his very existence. And it makes sense. Peter has been running non-stop, no support system, no rest. But something else is clearly happening here beyond just burnout. This visual actually reminded me of something from Spider-Man 3, when Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker hit his lowest point emotionally, right before the Venom symbiote bonded with him. But let's not jump to conclusions just yet. Let's look at what actually happens next. Peter is hanging in his own web. No clothes, no web shooters, and he's falling. But before he hits the ground, he catches himself without the shooters, meaning the web came from his body, from his hands, exactly the way Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man has always shot webs, and something that MCU Peter and the other two Peters actually discuss in No Way Home. And that's not even the only physical change we see. Peter's senses are completely overwhelmed. His entire apartment is wrapped in web. He can't swing properly anymore. His control over his powers is falling apart, so Peter does the smart thing. He goes looking for someone who understands biology at a level most people can't even imagine. He finds Bruce Banner, who appears to be giving a guest lecture. And if you look at Peter's sweatshirt, it says ESU, Empire State University, which, for comic fans, is exactly where Peter went to college, the same campus where he meets Harry Osborn and Gwen Stacy. So Peter sits down across from one of the world's most respected scientific minds and lays out his problem. And Bruce Banner's response? He asks Peter to repeat his name. That's not a throwaway moment. Think about it. Strange's spell wiped Peter Parker from everyone's memory. Banner has forgotten him. But here's the thing. Banner and Hulk share a body, but they don't always share the same mind. In the comics, Hulk has actually recognized Spider-Man even when Banner couldn't, because Hulk isn't subject to the same mental limitations. That double take from Banner might be the Hulk underneath, trying to surface a memory Banner can't consciously access. There's also a theory we explored previously, that the radioactive spider that bit Peter in the MCU may have had some connection to Tony Stark and Bruce Banner's research, which might be another reason Banner is quietly triggered by Peter's presence. Anyway, back to the diagnosis. Banner tells Peter that if his DNA is actively mutating, the situation is going to deteriorate. In standard medical terms, DNA mutation means disease, possibly worse. But then, and this is where it gets genuinely fascinating, so we hear another voice over the trailer, not Banner's, someone else. And this voice says something along the lines of, a spider passes through 3 stages of life, and in the space between them, it is most helpless. So now we have 2 completely different interpretations on the table. Banner is framing this as a medical crisis. This other voice is framing it as a transformation. DNA mutation doesn't only mean disease, it also means evolution. And right now, Spider-Man might be doing both at the same time. We also get a shot of Spider-Man being scanned, and based on the visual style of that technology, it looks like DODC equipment, the Department of Damage Control. We're introduced here to a character named Bill, who appears to be a DODC secretary. Bill is describing a threat they can neither contain nor detect. Mystery character and villains. Now we loop back to the armored vehicle, and it crashes directly into a DODC building. At this point, we catch a glimpse of someone restrained, and based on everything around this scene, this appears to be the character played by Sadie Sink. The running theory is that she has some form of mind transfer or consciousness projection ability, because what we see next is someone apparently jumping their mind from one person to another inside that vehicle. Now, rumors have been circulating about Sadie Sink possibly playing Jean Grey, but what we're seeing on screen doesn't really match Jean Grey's power set. It's actually closer to what Charles Xavier does, projecting into other minds, taking temporary control. And we get a shot of someone standing with both arms raised, a wall of monitors visible behind them. And here's the thing, the trailer has gone to great lengths to not show us the main villain, this silhouetted figure with the screens. Almost certainly them, then Scorpion, McGargan, last seen in the Homecoming mid-credit scene with a very specific grudge and a very long memory. Spider-Man is now standing right in front of him, and Gargan wants him out of the way. We also get what looks like Frank possibly on a call with Peter, Spider-Man crossing paths with MJ, and Spider-Man going head-on into a bus while trying to stop the armored vehicle. Some people in the comments have been saying they see Rogue in this sequence. And sure, the movie is dealing with mutation, but that's not Rogue. Comic recreations and the hand, and then the director just starts plating up iconic comic moments one after another. First, the amazing fantasy cover, the legendary image that introduced Spider-Man to the world recreated in live action. Next, Spider-Man going toe-to-toe with Boomerang, which is lifted directly from the Amazing Spider-Man issue. Then, Spider-Man vs. Tarantula, pulled from issue. And finally, Hand Ninjas, the same ancient organization connected to the Daredevil side of the MCU street-level world, surrounding an unmasked Peter Parker in what looks like some kind of prison environment. But Peter's eyes have changed. The color is completely off. Something is wrong. Some fans are pointing to the Venom symbiote. Others say Peter is simply evolving. My read? Someone has taken hold of Peter's mind. Because in the very next shot, Peter catches a Hand Ninja's sword and snaps the blade clean in half using nothing but force. Spider-Man does not do that. He pulls his punches. He's careful. He doesn't go around shattering weapons barehanded unless something has removed every one of his natural restraints, which means someone has a grip on him, and they're pointing him like a weapon. And the most visually stunning shot in the entire trailer, Spider-Man going mid-air against an entire squad of Hand Ninjas. It is absolutely wild. That one shot alone could sell ticket, so that's the full breakdown.